doesn't seem to be working.
Welcome back, everybody.
Guys! Oh, sorry.
Gonzalez Brothers Entertainment.
To
Today
another
we're bringing you the Infinity War with full.
It's awesome!
Are you going to stop?
I'll try.
And yes, it will contain lots
Totally
and lots
amazing spoilers! Be
You know what?
warned!
You know what?
What?
Much better company. Alright guys, if you didn't get that before, this is Avengers Infinity War spoiler review. There will be spoilers. Hopefully you've seen the movie. Let's jump right into it. So from the beginning of this movie, we get the scale, the ability of Thanos, him going toe-to-toe with the Hulk and the Hulk not standing a chance. And so when he picked them up and slammed them down, by then you know, oh man, we're in for a villain who is physically imposing, who is strong enough to throw the Hulk around like he's a rag doll, and to witness Loki finally die with the line, "There will be no more resurrections," was such a gut punch because even though he was a villain in the earlier stages of the MCU, he is someone that I've become a little attached to, and I like all his antics and his betrayal of Thor and all these other tricks he plays. And it was kind of sad to see him go finally, and Heimdall dying, and at least having the opportunity to send the Hulk to Earth as a warning was like a perfect way to start this film. And the twists and turns don't stop there. That's just the beginning. So there's so much in this movie that I want to talk about that I'm just going to go down point by point, all the different things that really affected me and caught my attention. And the next thing I want to talk about is Captain America's first entrance into this film, and that's when Vision and Wanda are fighting half of the Black Order down in Scotland, and it looks like they're about to get defeated, they're about to get overtaken, and we have that shot down in the subway where the train is passing through, and they're waiting on opposite ends, and as soon as the train clears, Proxima throws a spear, and out of the darkness, out of the shadows, steps Steve Rogers with the spear in hand, and that's just such a great cinematic moment. I had to cheer out loud because I really like the way they set it up, from the train passing through to him stepping out of the shadows, and that Avengers theme being played. It just works all together. And then having seen Black Widow and Cap and Falcon fighting together, you see that they really spend time together going on missions, and they really understand how to complement each other with their skills and when to jump in for each other, when to cover for each other's weaknesses, and that scene really works for me. The next scene that I really find myself thinking about more is not an action sequence. It's when Gamora asks Peter to kill her if Thanos ever takes her prisoner. And we obviously know that there's something underneath between these two characters. It's unspoken. But for her to ask him to do this thing was so major because of the feelings between them. And for her to ensure herself that he'll do it, he asked him to put it on his promise on his mother that he'll follow through on it. And that's just heartbreaking because it feels like Gamora doesn't want to take it there, doesn't want to make it so personal and difficult for Peter. But there's no other way to get him to comply with it. And then in a few scenes later where we see her get captured by Thanos and about to be taken away, and her asking him to honor his promise, and they finally put all their cards on the table and reveal how they feel about each other, is so heartbreaking. And then him pulling the trigger, but obviously Thanos had gotten a hold of the Reality Stone, and he changes his ammo into bubbles, and then him disappearing into the portal with Gamora. Like I said, it's so heartbreaking because not only was he unable to do what he promised, but now the love of his life has been taken by the greatest threat the galaxy has ever faced, and that just hits you in the gut really strongly. Another thing that I want to jump into is Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner talking to Tony and explaining everything that Thanos is and everything that Thanos wants to do by collecting all the Infinity Stones, and then realizing Iron Man realizing that he's gonna need backup and that he needs to call in Steve Rogers, and him pulling out the cell phone and really staring at it and not being able to make that phone call because obviously there's still a little bit of bad blood or hurt feelings between the two of them. I really like that they didn't really jump to, let me call Cap, we're gonna make it all better, because that would have made everything that happened at the end of Civil War a little cheaper, and I like that he hesitated. And the other great thing that when we get to the end of the film, we never see Cap, we never see Tony together, and I like that they kept that apart, and we're going to see some kind of resolution, or maybe even a fight that gets thrown in there before they come together to fix everything that happened in this movie. And I really like that they did that, and it shows that the weight of Civil War is still very present and it still weighs heavy on Tony's shoulders. The next thing I want to reference is Ebony Maw as a villain. Just his whole devotion, his loyalty to Thanos and believing what they're doing, and his speeches that he delivers are so chilling and scary, almost something out of a horror movie. And I really dislike the fact that he died so early on in the movie. I really wanted to see more of him because I found him so interesting and compelling and horrifying, truly. Um, Another thing I want to jump into is the fact that Star Lord's plan works on Titan, and they almost have the gauntlet off of Thanos, and it looks like there might be victory there. But him figuring out that Thanos has killed Gamora, or actually, let me back up for a second. The fact where we go to the planet where the Soul Stone is hidden, and the only way to get it is to sacrifice something that you love with someone that you love. And Gamora having that brief moment of triumph when she is taunting Thanos like, you don't care about nobody, all you care is about yourself. You kill, you torture, you murder, and now you can't get the thing you want the most because you don't love anything. And this whole time, he has his back to her, and when he turns around, he see not tears in his eyes, but tears running down his face. And that so slow realization that she is the one thing that he does love, and as much as he may care for her and love her, that he's still willing to sacrifice her, and him dragging her to the edge of the cliff in slow motion and throwing her off, and us watching Gamora tumble down and landing down and watching her die. It was another of those gut punch, heart wrenching moments that really stuck with me, and I keep going back to that. Even though we saw other characters die, that's the one that really stuck with me, and I keep going back, and it's really a kick to the nuts. Really, it's a gut wrenching moment, and I really appreciate that they did that. Amongst all the action and all the big action set pieces that we got in this movie, they really found a way to give us those scenes full of emotions and to really, really bring the terror and horror to the forefront. Now, let's jump back to the battle on Titan. Like I was saying before, Peter Quill's plan really worked. And it would have worked, and it looks like they would have gotten the gauntlet off of Thanos' hand. But him finding out in that very moment that Gamora was dead and that Thanos was the one who did it, him being unable to control himself, even though he knew deep down, I feel that reacting this way was going to throw everything out of whack and give Thanos the ability to start fighting back. Him not be able to control himself and, just getting lost in that moment of grief and lost and disaster really worked for me, because in a way it was almost an inverted scene that we got in Civil War, where Tony knows that Bucky was mind controlled and he wasn't really himself when he killed his parents. But still, when you see that in your face and you see that person responsible for what happened to them right in front of you, it's unavoidable to feel a certain way and act that way. And I really like how, at least to me, that was a parallel to those two scenes. And I don't blame Peter, because in every single film that he's been in, he's lost something. His mother, his illusion of what his father could have been, just lost all across. Yondu dying to sacrifice himself to save him, and now Gamora was just too much for one person to bear. And I really liked the way he reacted, and it was real realistic, and that seems like the way I might have acted, or any of us could have acted that same way. And it was hard for him to keep his composure and just wait for the gauntlet to come off, and all that really crashes down the plan, and it gives Thanos the ability to fight off the Avengers and continue on with his plan. The next thing I want to jump to that really caught my attention, that was really memorable amongst a sea of memorable scenes, has to be the fact that they're out of time. Thanos makes his way to Wakanda, and Vision is pretty much begging Wanda to destroy the Mind Stone, and her knowing that, once again, we have that love thread between these two characters. And it's come to this moment. They've tried to save his life. They tried to remove the stone and have him live through other means, but them being out of time because the threat is right there. And her having to destroy the person she loves while simultaneously trying to hold Thanos back was once again heartbreaking. And her having a brief moment of victory right before Thanos engages the time stone from the gauntlet and him going back in time, and her having to suffer the death of Vision again, once because it was a sacrifice of love and an understanding even, and him dying regardless of what the intentions were or saving the world or any of that. She still had to kill him essentially. And then Thanos reversing time and doing it again himself, like brutally crushing his head and pulling out the stone, and have her witness that again, which is like another of those gut wrenching moments where it hits you in the soul. And it was just very, very difficult to watch. I mean, I love this movie. It made me feel so many emotions, but these are some of the scenes that really stuck with me. And finally, Peter dying, him not being ready to go. He really sold that moment with Tony on Titan. He brought out the emotion, and you really understand. The thing we have to understand the most is that this kid's 15 years old. He hasn't really begun to live life, and yet he knows that his time is coming. He's about to crumble into nothing. He's seen other characters who went the similar way, and yet it's his moment, and him hugging Tony and Tony hugging him back, and just that whole emotion. Tom Holland really sold it, and that really brought tears to my eyes almost, because it was difficult to watch, like I mentioned before, and it was just done really, really well. And finally, the last two things I want to mention are Thanos after engaging, after he snaps his fingers and he erases half of reality, where he has this moment on that soul plane or whatever you want to call it, and he talks to young Gamora, and she asks the question, had he completed his mission? The answer obviously is yes. And the question is, how much did it cost you? And his answer is everything. That really brings a different layer to Thanos, because he's just not a mindless thug destroying and killing civilizations without no purpose. Deep down in his mind, he feels that this is the right thing. If the greater good is to prevail, if life is supposed to carry on in this universe, sacrifices have to be made. And I don't think that it comes as easy to him. I think there's some level of difficulty that really comes through when he has to do all these things, but he's been doing it for such a while that he just goes through with it. But I think that deep down it's really costing him something. And finally, that final sequence where I think it was Gamora's planet, because earlier he referenced that after destroying half the population, the rest of civilization survived, and this planet had become a paradise of sorts, and him standing there or sitting there just looking at the sunrise or sunset, I forget which, and the movie closing on that final visual was the perfect way to close this film, because it gave you, a clear understanding of Thanos. And I think that almost his expression was peaceful, and that's where they closed the movie. Perfect. Yeah, guys, I know there's so much that goes on in this movie. There's so many other cool moments between characters and interactions. But if I keep going, this video is going to be like 10 days long. I just want to hit on the scenes that really caught my attention and that really stuck with me after walking out of the cinema and going home on the drive home. Sitting there eating my leftover popcorn, thinking about this stuff. Or late at night, that same night, laying down in bed to go to sleep. Me finding myself going back to these moments. And these are some of the moments that really stuck to me. I'm going to watch this movie again before... probably next weekend, and I don't know, I might do a video on things that caught my attention on the second view, but for now, those are the things that really stuck with me. So, have you guys seen this movie? I'm assuming you've seen this movie. What did you think? Did you like it? Did you think it's the greatest movie in the MCU? I certainly do so. I'm not sure where it ranks yet. I know it's easy for me to say it's number one right now because, prisoner of the moment type stuff. But leave your comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. For now, this is GB saying, I'm not ready to go.